Hey guys, I'm Rob Younkers. I'm a fashion and costume designer with 20 plus years of experience, an educator, and lover of all things DIY. That's why I'm so excited to introduce you to THREADYMADE. THREADYMADE kits bring you New York City Garment District insider access that you've never had before. THREADYMADE pleating and smocking kits are going to allow you to create things that you've never been able to make at home before, and they're going to be key pieces in your new wardrobe. The great thing about these kits, they're accessible to people of all skill levels as far as sewing goes, and we cater to all shapes and sizes, so THREADYMADE is very inclusive. The other fun part, we're going to show you the steps to create these pieces, but we also want to know what you would do with them, how to put your own creative touch on them. So are you guys excited to start sewing? I'm going to walk you through all the steps. Ready, set, go! The Sunburst Pleated Skirt Kit is one of my favorites. I absolutely love sunburst pleating. I think it's classic, timeless. You'll see it in the past, you'll see it in the future, and now you're gonna make your own. So, this kit comes with everything you need to create one of 3 waistband options. Your first is exposed elastic. This is super on trend, the contrast color is really cool, and it's also the simplest to put together as your kit comes with the elastic waistband already sewn on for you. The intermediate version is the tunnel elastic. So again, it's a pull-on style, but we've created this waist so you're covering the waistband elastic in the same fabric as the skirt, it sort of just disappears. And the experienced sewer's skirt is the more classic tailored fixed waistband. So this is a non-stretch waistband. It's gonna fit really perfectly on your body. We're gonna measure to make sure. And this goes on and off with an invisible side zip. So, to walk through the kit contents, everything that you need to create one of these styles is already in your kit. You're going to receive your sunburst pleated panel. As I mentioned, it already comes with the exposed elastic sewn on if you want to do a really quick going out tonight kind of project, throw something together in an hour. It comes a little bigger than you need, we're going to cut it down to size. There are 2 pieces of fabric cut for waistbands. One is the fabric itself. You can see it's really soft, just the simple fabric, and this is what we would use for the tunnel elastic version as opposed to the much stiffer fused piece. So this has fusible on the back. You'll be able to tell because this one has no give with the fusible interfacing, and this one's just the soft piece. So this fusible interfacing is applied by just being ironed on, and it's gonna give that waist the body it needs for the fixed waistband, which has no stretch in it. Also, for your tunnel elastic, you have your plain white elastic that will get inserted through the tunnel. And to finish off the fixed waistband, you're gonna have the invisible zipper and these adorable little hook and eyes which will close off that side seam. So before making your skirt, we have to measure for your skirt. My suggestion is to measure your waist wearing something that you love. So this is Tiffany. Hi, Tiff. Hello. So Tiff, you're wearing these jeans and you told me before that you really like where the waistline sits on these jeans. So this is a really great way, you guys, to capture that measurement is to look at something that exists in your closet. So all I need you to do, and you guys at home, is get a tape measure. So Tiff, you're just gonna wrap this around the waistband of your jeans and meet in the front. Drop it down a little bit. Okay, so we're at 28. This feels like a comfortable spot. Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna take that measurement to the table and pin up the sample. So we have a waist measurement. What you wanna do is transfer that measurement to your skirt panel. Make sure that you start from one side, but we're gonna have a 1/2 inch seam allowance on the skirt and 1 inch on the elastic. So I would suggest going in from one side at least 2 inches, you're pinning together, so that you've got room for those seam allowances. So what I'm gonna do is take my ruler, I'm gonna start in 2 inches and give myself a little mark on the elastic as well as the skirt itself. And then from that point, I'm going to measure. And you guys make sure that you are measuring along the stitch line where the elastic is attached to the skirt itself. Can you see this stitch line? So go ahead and measure. Okay. Once you have that measurement, mark the other side. And these are going to be your seam lines. So you can see here that I have, well, first you can see that I've marked on the wrong side, which is where you want your marks to be for this. And I've got 2 inches of seam allowance here. I have good eyes, I can tell it's 2 inches. And 2 inches of seam allowance here. So when we pin this together, there's a little bit of room for movement. Now, the thing that's really important about sewing the side seam of this skirt is that your seam is going to fall in the valley of the pleats. Now follow me here. This is a peak and this is a valley. So what we're going to do is try to match up that seam line in the valleys on each side so that seam gets lost in between the pleats and you won't even see where the seam is. So I'm gonna fold this in half. Now I'm looking at both sides where my marks are. So I am lining up. I'm moving a 1/4 inch over to get into a valley on one side. I'm looking at my other seam line and shifting that a tiny bit so that, I'm going to show you in 1 second here. My pins line up on both sides in a valley. Here, in a valley here. So now we're going to continue to pin down the entire valley on both sides. They kind of sit on top of each other. If you can pin properly, if you can see how I'm lying this one over the other. And I'm just continuing down the entire valley. So Tiffany's back. Welcome back, Tiff, in the Sunburst pleated skirt. So Tiff, I pinned this according to the measurements. How do you feel in the skirt?
It feels really good.
Do you like where it's sitting on your waist?
Yeah, I love it.
Take it off and let me finish this thing. So we have a good fit on the waistband. We're gonna go ahead and mark the entire side seam all the way down on both sides, just following the edges of our pins. So you've got your waist measurement already marked. So go ahead and follow those safety pins with just a really light line. You don't need to add a lot of chalk. You just want something that you can see yourself. This chalk will disappear once it's ironed. So go ahead and mark along those pins all the way down. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So now with all the chalk marks indicating our side seam, we can go ahead and remove all our safety pins. Like I said, you just want these lines visible to you. So right along that seam, they're a little hard to maybe catch on camera, but you can see tiny, tiny lines all the way down. So we're gonna unpin. You don't wanna sew with safety pins at the machine. So we're just gonna transfer over with regular pins. Again, just matching up those seams. You guys want to make sure that your waistband is perfectly matched up. You don't want one side higher than the other or lower than the other. So go ahead and pin that side seam with your regular pins, following your chalk marks. And you're just going to line that up all the way down once again. So now we're going to be sewing down the elastic inside our waistband. I love these magnetic metal seam guides. So to sew the waistband part of the skirt, I'm going to place this on the 1-inch mark, and we're just going to follow the edge of this elastic to the edge of the metal plate in order to get a nice stitch line. Since the elastic is a different color than the body of the skirt, we're just going to stitch the waistband part of the side seam first. So go ahead and place the waistband under your needle with the presser foot in place, and we're just going to stitch from the top of the waistband to the bottom. Make sure we back stitch at the top and the bottom. So now we're going to be sewing the side seams. With the side seam perfectly stitched now, we're going to add 1-inch seam allowance on our elastic. So go ahead and chalk that. And then a 1/2-inch seam allowance on the skirt. The reason we do a wider elastic seam allowance is because we're going to turn it back under to finish it. So then you can go ahead with your ruler and your chalk and mark the 1/2-inch on the skirt. All the way down with that 1/2-inch mark on your stitch line. And then we can go ahead and cut the remainder of the seam allowance off. So we'll have 1 inch on the waistband and a 1/2 inch on the skirt itself. So just fold the seam allowance in half, roll it under, place a pin to hold it, place the folded back edge of the elastic under the machine, and we're going to stitch as close to that rolled edge as we possibly can. Again, you want to make sure you have your back stitch at the beginning and the end because we don't want this to unravel. Now once you finish one side, go ahead, flip the other, and we're going to stitch the exact same way. So go ahead and clean up all your threads, and your skirt's finished.